Hello, hello. I hope you guys are all having a wonderful day. I am just resorting all of the colors I pulled out, my ink and things, for this uh, video today. I had to take a screenshot, so I'm just sorting it all out back where they need to go so I can go over the importance of color families with you. That light was a little bit bright, wasn't it? Anyway, I am Beth Golden. I am so happy that you're joining me today. I get a lot of questions on color families and what that is and means and why it's important. Basically, when we are creating art, we don't want to create something that well, we want it to look good, right? And we don't always want mud. So I'm going to tell you what colors you can blend together successfully that are a surefire way, and what colors should not be blended together. It's really simple. I've gone over this all before in my tutorials a lot in my videos. I've talked about it, but I've never done an extensive video on how to blend colors, what colors work together, and what colors are more temperamental together. So I'm going to address that all. I also am going to be using a broad range of many different types of inks, paints, and sprays to illustrate the point and to let you know that it's universal. It doesn't matter what brand you're working with. This is going to fly for every single brand. This is a universal principle. It's something that's nice to have in your crafting arsenal so you are successful in what you're trying to create. With that being said, if you look down below in the description box, I have listed for you many supplies. Those are just some of my favorites that I will be demoing with today. The color blends I don't have listed down below because I don't believe it is out in the stores I was looking at. This is by Color Blocks. It's a new product that has just come out in March, so make sure you go and look for that at your favorite crafting store. I'm sorry that I don't have a link. If I find one, I will provide it. So let's go ahead and dive in. First thing that you need to remember about color is your warms and your cools. This is crucial. Okay, so I have right here two dilution colors. One is a cool, one is a warm. Think of your cools as things that you will do to cool you down. So your water, things that are blue undertone. They have a blue tone. Cools. They do things to cool you down. These are things that'll heat you up. Think about fire, red. So anything that has a red undertone is going to be your warms. These two can successfully be mixed together to make purple. You can only mix these two together successfully. Where people get in trouble is with mud. They don't want mud. They want some beautiful rainbow type collage or something, and they end up with mud, and they're like, how did that happen? First of all, it depends on what kind of paint you're using. Is it a water-based paint? Is it an acrylic paint? If it's an acrylic paint, you're more likely to be able to blend across the board. So you could blend a blue with a red and a yellow successfully, and you'll be okay as long as you kind of let it dry between your layers. If it is a water-based color, then you're going to end up with mud, a brown mud. And some people, that's cool. If you're going for the grungy look, then that works. But for other people, we don't want that. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to show you some surefire color combinations that you can use using water-based products. I'm not using acrylics. I am using Color Burst. I'm using Ken Oliver's new watercolor droplets. I'm using Distress ink. Dilutions ink spray, dilution paint, and then I'm going to be using some color blends, and I'm going to finish it off with a demonstration with Distress Oxides and why Distress Oxide kind of breaks the rule. And this will give you a better idea of what kind you want in your arsenal. All right, so let's first start off with just some dilution paint. And I'm going to show you a blend right now that is all cool. So this is going to create a beautiful background. So these are the colors that I'm using. This is London Blue. This is teal. And then this is cut grass. Now I am going to just be using a baby wipe. I'm not going to be pulling out stencils or anything like that. I'm just going to be using a baby wipe to blend these. And just so you know, since this is more of an educational video, I will be cleaning up my space as I go. I won't necessarily be trying to save all of my ink like normally I would if I was working on a project, but that would take forever if I sat here and tried to dab up, you know, everything with a piece of paper to make a background. All right, so the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to lay out my cut grass. And I'm just going to lay this out. I'm using a mixed media 5x7 piece of paper that I cut down for this one. Okay, so I have this cut grass down. The reason why I'm using mixed media paper is because I know that it can withstand what I'm doing. And this was the cut grass. And so from here, I'm going to go ahead and just blend in some of my teal. And this is all going to work together because it is all cool colors. They all are warm, all right? So that's why this is all just going to work really, really nicely together. And as you can see, as it always interacts with water, and no matter, even if I were to set this with a heating gun, if I were to lay more color on this, it would still interact with water and it would still mix. So I will never ever lay yellow or anything on this other than what I am right now. All right, so from here, I believe this is our London Blue. So I'm going to go ahead and just blend this in as well. Okay, so as you can see, I didn't get mud. It all ended up really, really pretty. And if I want, I can go back in and grab some more of this cut grass and just kind of lay it out. And you can use a blending tool or whatever you want on this. It doesn't really matter. I'm just using a white because it's easy. Okay, and you see how now my baby wipe, I can actually go over with some of the color that I have already laid out on my baby wipe and just tap that in, the blue. So that is a wonderful, beautiful background for a card that is a nice representation of how to blend cool colors together. Now from here, let's go ahead and do a warm background using this same paint. And again, I'm just using this paint because this is what I have on hand. But if you have any other watercolor based paint, you'll be able to successfully do this as well. So let me pull this aside now. Notice that my background is a mess and I need to clean that up because if I don't get these cool colors up, I will definitely end up with mud on my next background sheet. Okay, so from here, we're going to go ahead and I'm going to pull out another background. The colors that I'm going to use for this are Squeezed Orange, cherry pie, and lemon zest. I always like to start with my lightest first. I'm going to have to be careful because my fingers are dirty, and that also could cross-contaminate my color. Let me set this one off the side. All right. So let me get those open up. I'm going to grab myself a wipe. And I'm actually going to try to wipe my fingers up a little bit because this is, you know, it does interact with whatever I'm using. So let me try to get that wiped up as much as I can. All right, so the first color I'm going to lay out is going to be my lemon zest. Now, my color is getting a bit hard because I live in the desert. And the best way to avoid that is just to keep a little bit of water on hand and you can kind of reactivate it. So I'm going to squirt some water in it and let it kind of soak up. That's the beauty of a water-based color, is you can kind of save it. So I'm just going to squirt. So I'm just really going to squirt in some water and move this around. This should be really, really smooth and easy to move. So I know that it has started to dry out, but as you can see, since I went through with some water, it did loosen up and I was able to use it. All right, I'm going to set this aside. And then for this next color, I'm going to be using squeezed orange. And let's see how this color is holding up. Oh, yeah, that's a little bit more liquid. And I'm just going to rub it on in with the baby wipe. And I understand that Diane is super fast. I am not super fast. I have no desire to go real fast at this. Again, these are my warm colors. And as you can see, it blends in really, really pretty. We're going to go ahead. Hello, Leah. Hey, you can get it. I'm going to leave it up. So if you miss it, don't worry about it. Just come back and watch it on replay. It's going to be up after this, I promise. I'm going to post it. Okay, so from here, I'm going to use the next color, which is my cherry pie. And I'm just going to start this off up over here. And then I'm just going to try to find a place that is relatively clean and blend it in like so. And now we have a beautiful warm background piece that we can use as a base for something in our art room. No mud, all right? So that is the warm and the cool. So now we're going to talk about the exception to the rule. There is one color that if you blend it with a warm and a cool, you're going to get mud. And your warm colors are going to be yellow, orange, red, pink. Your cool colors are green, blue, teal, things like that. But if I were to take purple, and I have two different purples, and blend my purples with yellow and green, I will get mud. If I were to blend my purple with green and blue, I would get mud. The only colors that you can blend purple with and not get mud are blue or red. So with that in mind, let's create a background using our purples. I'm going to use two different purples, a light and a dark, and this is laid back lilac and crushed grape, and then I want to blend it with my London blue. And I can even go ahead and throw in some of my cherry pie because it's a red and it's going to be okay. So why don't we go ahead and just do that as well so you can see how this works. And then I'm going to purposely make some mud so you can see how blending is super crucial. So I'm going to start with the lightest color, which is my lilac first. Again, I'm just going to use that white. And I'm just going to blend that on down. And then from here, I'm going to use some crushed grape. And of course, this is going to blend perfectly together because they're both purple. Sometimes I'll do that. I will just blend in with the purples. All right, and then from here, I want to use my London blue. Whoop, a little bit too much right there. Still super pretty. And then I want to take and blend in my cherry. I think this is cherry pie. And again, this is a warm, so I'm going, this is the only time that you can successfully blend these together and not get mud. And the reason is because red and blue make purple. And that's a warm and a cool color together. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and just kind of rub out that color and you're left with a really beautiful background piece that is not mud. So let me go ahead with you and create a muddy background so you can see what I'm talking about. But isn't that pretty? No mud, it looks gorgeous, we're good to go. So I am going to use for this, I'm going to take some of my teal and some orange, and we'll keep that purple out. Now, these are all across the spectrum. I have my cool teal, my warm orange, and my, as Diane Reevely calls it, my color of sin, which is the grape. So from here, let's just throw this down and see what we get. So I'm putting down my squeezed orange first. Now I'm going to put down my teal. See, I'm already getting brown. See that? Not an ugly brown, but you will get brown. That's just kind of how it works. And then I'm going to put down some of my grape. All right. And then look at that. See how I'm starting to get that brown? So let me go through and just really blend this all in with my wipe. And as you can see, it has a brown overlay to it. So that is how you create mud. Just put purple on it and blend a cool and a warm. So from here, I want to go ahead and just use the dilution sprays and do the same thing like I did with the paint, so you can see how it really works with the sprays as well. This demonstration should be a little bit quicker because I'm not laying out the paint. All right, so let me set this one aside, and then I will show you all the samples in the end. Let me clear my space. And all right, so for my first set of ink, I am going to go ahead and just use my, let's see here. I'm going to use on this one, and also something else to keep in mind is, let's say that you want to use green. You can safely use green and yellow and blue together because yellow and blue make green. So think about that as well when you're laying out your color. And this is actually, it is lime. And then I'm going to put down some jade. And then I'm going to put down some periwinkle blue. And that is a beautiful, and that would be representation of your cools. So that is how you would use your sprays. I'm going to go ahead and just kind of dab it up. She uses a kitchen towel, which I might go grab because I have one right above me that I can do. But see, that, no brown at all, because I kept my color theory in mind. So that is a really nice representation of a cool. So let's go ahead and make a warm. Set this aside. And then I'm just gonna get up my ink. All right, so for my warms, I'm going to use Pure Sunshine, Postcard Red, Tangerine Dream. Let's think about things that make you hot. Fire, red, right? Okay. So that's Pure Sunshine. Here's Tangerine. And then here is the red. And I'm going to just dollop on a little bit more Sunshine. And then I can just take my roll and just go over it. And then voila. So again, no mud, right? Because I kept in mind my warms and I didn't mix it with the cools. So let's go ahead and do one that is a purple base, which means I can use red or blue and purple, or red and blue and purple. So for this one, I'm going to use lilac and my crushed grape. And then I think I'm going to go ahead and use the periwinkle blue. And I'll go ahead and throw on my postcard red. Now if I were to throw, and I'll show you, we'll make mud at the end of this, okay, just so you can see. And this one is lilac. Here's my blue. Here's some red. That's a little dark, right? It's almost like a burgundy. And here is my crushed grape. And I'm going to go over it one more time with my lilac, which is my lightest color. And you end up with a dark purpley type background, but it all works. Okay, so there's Marigold. Let's go ahead and make some mud. And so what I'm going to do is, just to show that you don't need purple to make red mud on this demonstration, but if you were to put purple down, you always would end up with mud. We already know that, I just demonstrated that. I'm going to leave purple out of it, and I'm going to bring in orange, jade, and let's do some lime. Now, you have more success of not getting mud if you were to just mix the pure. This is a mix of blue and a green together. You know, this is yellow and red together. This is yellow and green together. So you can successfully mix red and blues together and not end up with mud. That's such a pretty color. This color is. Just fine. But once you start to deviate from that and throw in the mixes, then you're going to have a problem. Like, this is a mixed color. To get this color, you have to mix it. So as you can see, I'm starting to get mud because I didn't keep in mind my color family. Same, I just used 3 colors, but I ended up with mud. All right, so let me go ahead and dry that. And I wish that that would stay. That's cool. It's still pretty though. I will say that. I do like it. I think it's pretty. That's still a really pretty background. I'll use it on something. But if I wanted that beautiful crisp color, that's not how it's going to happen. All right, so let's move on from the sprays and go into our Distress Oxides by Tim Holtz. Let's get into some inks. And these are awesome. I love them. We'll end this with we're going to do Distress inks. We will end this with Distress Oxides because those are really cool. They kind of break the rules a little bit in a good way. And I'll show you what I mean by that. And I'll also tell you how, I was looking over at my stash because I didn't bring it. The Distress Glaze that I used yesterday on the project will help your Distress Oxides not turn chalky at the end. All right, so for this, let's create a background with our cool colors. So we're going to use Pistachio, Peacock Feather, Lagoon. Again, these are all cool colors. They represent on water blue. That's what we think of, right? So I'm just going to ink up my pad or my sponge and just really get this in. And you know what? I'm picking up off of this. I didn't do a very good cleaning it. Do you see that? I have some orange. So I need to go in and just really make sure that I get that up. And this clearly, I need to re-ink. All right. And then let's go in with some peacock feathers. Pretty color too. I really love distressed inks. I don't know why. I just do. Now, if you want to go ahead and make this, see, and I still have, it's my hands. It's my hands that are doing it. If you want to go in and make this so that it will not move and build on it, you could go ahead and use this at that point too. And if you want more information about that, go ahead and watch my video from yesterday in which I did that, but I can show you it right here. This is what it is. We'll do that on the Distress Oxide so you can see what I'm talking about, and you just use it the same exact way as you would on both of these. Super easy. All right, so from here, let's go ahead and use some Mermaid Lagoon to finish off this cool pad. All right. Getting my fingerprints all over it because they're slightly wet, and this does interact with moisture. So I'm going to go ahead, take my sprayer on this and just mist a little bit of this on here just to do that wonderful, famous Tim Holtz distressing, right? And then I can just take a paper towel and pick up my excess drops if I want. And now I'm left with a super pretty, cool background. And you can definitely get this darker by laying down more color. Okay, so from here, let's move on to a warm color palette. So I'm going to be using things that represent fire. That's our warm. Fire's warm, right? So I'm going to be using our Abandoned Coral, Spiced Marmalade, and Mustard Seed. I'm going to start with Mustard Seed. My fingers are dirty, so I hope that they don't cross-contaminate too much. But what I can do, I can hold my paper down with a paper towel. All right, so I'm just gonna slap down some of this color, which is my mustard seed. And I'm just randomly putting it. I kind of want it to go in spaces in which we're going to blend with other colors. And then from here, I want to go ahead and throw down some spiced marmalade, which is a beautiful orange. All right. And I will end it off with an abandoned coral. And then I will mist this down as well. So you can see how they blend beautifully together and you're not left with mud. So here is some abandoned coral. Again, I'm not being real careful. I'm just more so trying to showcase how you can blend colors and keep that in mind. All right, so let me add a little bit more down here. All right, now let me go ahead and add a little bit of water to this so you can see them move around. The more water you add, the more they move. But see how pretty that is? And it did not require any it didn't bleed at all, but it sure ended up really lovely. And when you do put that down, since this is a water base, it will lift those colors up slightly or a lot, depending on how much you put down. But in the sake of time, I can actually throw some more of this on, and you can work with this as it's wet because I did remove quite a bit of the color from this. So let me go ahead and just blend in a little bit more just to put some of that color back in. All right. So from here, I'm going to create one that is purple based. And you know, like I said before, purple can only be blended with red or blue. So for this particular one, I am going to do Spun Sugar, which is, we're going to see if it works, Shaded Lilac, and Broken China. I rinse my fingers a little bit. Grab a paper towel. Wipe this down. Okay, so the first color I'm going to lay out is going to be my Spun Silk. I'm just going to this is super light. I might actually need to re-ink that one. And then let me lay out my Broken China, and then I will end with the Shaded Lilac. And then we will create one in which we mix a bunch of the colors together to get, you guessed it, mud. I've noticed that in my stash of Tim Holtz Distress inks, and I thought that I had almost all of them, there's only one purple. And I've only seen like 2 in his whole collection, so he might be onto something. He might have said, I know that I can mix red and blue together to get purple, and people are going to mix these together and end up with mud, and they're not going to understand, so I'm going to just leave the purple out of it. I can see how, as a artist with my own line. I tried to steer clear of purple. But this is his purple. It's a lilac. And then he also has another one. He does have Sealess Preserves, which is kind of a reddy burgundy. And then he also has another one I'm going to use later, Wilted Violet, in the Distress Oxide line. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead, get this wet, set it aside, and then we will move on from Distress Oxides over to Ken Oliver's Color Burst, which happen to be my favorite type of paint. See, that just moves around beautifully. It blends nicely. I'm not going to touch it this time. I'm going to just let it be. And now we're going to get messy, people. Yeah, we're going to get messy. Okay, so if you've never played with Ken Oliver's Color Burst, boy oh boy are you in for a treat. It does not take much. You only need a little bit of this stuff and you are set. It's pigment that they use in watercolor paint. That's pretty much what it is. And his do an excellent job of really showcasing the importance of color theory. So I'm going to start off with Orange Lemon, which is a warm representation of the color family. And you just kind of spank its little bottom like that. And you're not going to really see much of it. I like to apply it wet. I like to wet the paper down sometimes and then apply the pigment and then go over but for this particular demonstration right now, I'm just going to do it dry and then voila. And then the color magically appears. And the more you want it to move, the more water you throw down. So that is the beautiful, the warm, which was orange, tangerine, and lemon yellow. So let's go ahead and do a warm mix of his colors, which I'm going to use turquoise, actually, ultramarine blue, and we'll just use some, I can't even say that, it's the green. All right. So from here, I'm going to go ahead and just lay out the turquoise first. And then I'm going to lay out some some green. And then I'm going to go ahead and finish it off with some beautiful ultramarine blue. And I'm going to take my squirt bottle and just mist it down. And voila. So pretty. All right. And the more that this moves, obviously, the more the color blends and the backgrounds get a little bit different and so on and so forth. But it is a very, very fun way to create stunning backgrounds. Okay, so let's go ahead with his and do a purple background. He actually has, well, I have two of his purples. He may have more. I have his violet and orchid. And for this, I thought it would be fun to try to lay out some fuchsia, which is a pink. So we'll see how this, actually, no, I'm going to use crimson for this. It's more true of a red. So the first thing I want to lay out is my orchid. Then I want to lay out my crimson. And then I want to lay out my violet. I'm going to go ahead and just mist that down for a beautiful purpley background. And again, as that moves, it's going to look different. And I'm going to do with his color burst, I'm going to purposely create some mud, and you will see why, again, why the color theory is important, just, you know, across the board in general, regardless of what product brand you're using. All right, so for this one, let me pull out another piece of mixed media paper. Let me throw down some of this, it's like a yellow, I don't know, it's called cheroot, horrible. It's that color. Don't ask me to say it. Okay, we're just gonna throw out a lot on this because I want you to see. I'm gonna throw out some lime green next. Let me throw down some fuchsia. And let me go ahead and also pop down some lemon yellow. Again, we're going to get a muddy mess on this one, okay? Just showing you that you can't blend everything and get pretty colors all the time. We're going to throw down some orange. We're just going to throw them all down. Let's do some crimson. Let's do some tangerine. And let's do some turquoise on this. Let's do some green. Let's do some ultramarine blue. We'll do a little bit of orchid. Like I said, I'm throwing them all on. Everything that's on my desk that is color burst right now is going down. And then let's go ahead and just do some violet. Okay, we should get mud. Let's see if my theory holds true. So far, kind of pretty, right? Still kind of pretty. You still can use this, I think. And now we're getting into, it just all blends and you end up with kind of not so wonderful right there. For this, the background is so dark, I am going to go ahead and just take a paper towel and lift some of that color up because that's, let's see if we still get the brown. So it's still pretty, but there is some brown in that, as you can kind of tell. All right. So again, just going to prove it doesn't matter if you're using just Dylusions ink spray or watercolor paint, water-based paint, or distress ink or color burst. If you mix, if you don't pay attention to your color families, you're going to get mud. That's just kind of what's going to happen. But that is pretty. I'm still going to use that background because I kind of am digging on it. All right. So I'm going to move into the new Ken Oliver watercolors. He has a new line out. I have never used this. This is completely experimental. For me, I haven't even bothered to Google or YouTube how to use this line. I'm just going to kind of use it how I think you're supposed to use it, and we'll see what happens. But again, I'm going to take into consideration, you know, those color families. So for the first one, the colors in this line are Merlot, which is a beautiful type of, then we have a burnt orange. So these are definitely our warms. Our warms. Then for our cools, we have an indigo. And then we have a terra verde, which is a green. And then we have a sepia, which is a brown. Now, I'm not going to play with this one right now, just simply because, that'll give me brown. Prove that you can, if you stay true to your color families, you won't get brown. So it would be kind of ridiculous for me to throw that on. But the first thing I want to do is I just want to take some of my watercolor and drop it out. I don't know if this is how you're supposed to use this, you guys. I don't have a clue. So I'm going to use indigo, and then I'm going to use some of the pretty green. And let me go ahead and just wet this down. This should move. Oh, wow. Wow, that's so fun. I'm gonna really move it around on my paper and just see what it does. That almost kind of looks like it went a little bit brown on me. Let me just throw in some of that and my verde. All right, and I'm just going to move this around some more. And then you can just pick it up like so. And that does create a really pretty background. How fun. I'm not sure if that's how you're supposed to use it, but that's how I just tried it. So, hey. All right, let's go ahead and let's try those other colors in his line. The Merlot orange and then the yellow. I'm trying to find places to put things at this point without getting everything totally soaked. All right, so we're going to do these three colors, which is yellow, orange, and burnt orange and Merlot. So this is going to be our, I'm wiping my fingers, our warms, because again, fire, right? It's warm. Alrighty-o. Cross-contaminating myself like crazy here. And I'm going to get this time I'm going to get the paper wet first, just to see if that'll maybe move it a little bit around. And I'm going to put something to kind of hold it. So let me go ahead and just get some, we'll do the yellow first. And that's kind of a brownish yellow, like a mustard almost. Real pretty. And then let me go ahead and throw some burnt orange down. And then let me finish off with Merlot. And then I'm going to go ahead and just spray this one more time. And we'll move it around and see what we end up with. This is kind of fun, you guys. I gotta admit. You just gotta be able to, you gotta be cool with getting your fingers dirty, you know? That's really pretty. Okay, so from here I do want to kind of see what that sepia color is. So I'm going to throw some of that on too, just to see. That's definitely a brown. But this is a really nice background. I'm thinking like a really cool coffee background on this, you know? I like it. What a fun concept. And you know, I really do need to go and watch his videos on this and just do some research on how to play with these, because I'm not entirely sure if I'm doing this right. I probably am doing it entirely wrong, but it's fun. All right, so let me just go ahead and I'll do that, pat it into the, and then that'll dry. That's cool. Okay, so let's move on to our color blends by Color Box. And this is a really awesome new product to me. And again, you can, in order to blend these, you will want to go ahead and use a baby wipe on these. These are by, this is her new line. It's supposed to come out this month in stores. So definitely keep your eye open for these. They're really pretty. I've played with them before when I first got them, and I thought I'd bring them out again just for this demonstration today because they are blendables, obviously, because it says blend. So I definitely need to keep my color family in mind when playing with these. Make sure I have everything. So we will create with this a warm, cool, purple, and then we might do mud on this too, I'm not sure. So what I'm going to do for this is I'm first going to start off, let's do with my cool, which is going to be the bay, the frog, and the beach. So what I want to do is I just want to throw down like little bit. This is straight up ink, but it blends absolutely beautiful. Then we'll do beach. Let me throw some more frog down. She actually has an applicator that goes with this that's super cool, and I really want it. I need to order it. I ran into her at Creativation and she asked me, she had them in her hand. She goes, "You want to take these home and play?" I'm like, yeah. So I literally, it was spur of the moment, but they are so fun. All right, so I'm going to take my baby wipe, my trusty baby wipe, and I'm just going to start to move this ink around. And again, we are creating a warm background. And this color stays very vibrant. It's so pretty. See how vibrant that color stays? Look how pretty that is. And it just really moves beautifully. I really like how it moves. But do you see how now we have a really pretty warm background, and I want to loosen this up a little bit more. So I'm going to go in with my wipe, the clean spot, and just keep rubbing this out until it gets to my liking. And now we have a beautiful, cool background created with the frog, bay, and beach. So our blue and our green. So now I want to go ahead and create another background, only this time I want to keep in mind the, not only the color families, but how you blend, because they're called blends, right? So I want to do some color blending, in which I can take, for example, my frog and let's say beach and golden. Okay, I believe that is a yellow. It might be a brown. We might end up with brown on this. We'll see. But I'm thinking that since frog is created with a blue and a yellow, this should work. So I'm going to go ahead and just put down some color. And we're going to just do that whole blending technique once again with my wipe. Okay, so let's go ahead and just see what we end up with on this one. It's a little bit brown, and I think it's because my golden is not a true yellow. It's actually has a brown undertone to it, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, okay? So, that's okay. I'm going to loosen this up a little bit. And when I say loosen it up, all that means is I'm just going to find a portion of my baby wipe that is not dirty and it's still wet. I want to throw some more beach on this, I think. Give it a little bit more blue and just see how that does. And then the next one we're going to do is I'm actually going to create purple. Oh, I like that. Okay, so that's a pretty background as well. All right, so from here, let's go ahead and throw on three colors for this one, which is going to be Uniform, Tutu, and Bay. Let's see how these blend together. Again, purple. I think that this is a purple. I can't remember if it's a purple or a dark blue. But if you're taking purple and you're blending it with a red and a blue, you should be fine. Now, I'm not blending it with a true blue or red. I'm blending it with a pink, and I actually probably need to do beach on that because we'll do bay. We'll just see how that ends up. If anything, it's just going to prove my color theory point, which is if you mix warms and cools together, you end up with brown or mud. Yeah, that's a little bit green. So we might end up with some mud on this. Let me get a clean baby wipe to go for this one. And these might be my new favorite inks to blend with. They're really beautiful. That's pretty. definitely am going to want to throw more Choo Choo Pink into this. Yeah, I pretty much just ended up with a blue background. So the uniform is really, I think it's more of a blue, but that's okay. Let's try to create some purple by throwing in some pink. Okay. And I do get a little bit of purple going, and I'm just gonna rub that on out. We're gonna have a really pretty background. Okay, so I'm gonna end today with the Distress Oxides because those are in a class all by itself. They're blendable, yet once they are set, you can build on top of them and you can get beautiful colors that do not turn to mud. And I'm gonna show you what I mean with that. If you haven't played with them, then you know it'll give you a good idea. If you have played with them, then you'll probably know what I'm talking about. But they're really, really awesome because if you feel like you messed up, you can always kind of fix it, which is super duper nice. So that's what I appreciate. And I'm just going to lay them out as we've all been taught how to lay them out, which is just smooshing them on the glass mat. And then I'm going to show you how you can set them if you don't really want that chalky finish, because that's the one thing is as they dry, they do have a chalky finish, and that's not always something that you want. So I'm going to be working with the squeezed lemonade, the carved pumpkin, candied apple, lucky clover, peacock feathers, and wilted violet. So as a whole, these colors should not work well together because they're warms and cools. But the Distress Oxides, you can get them to work well together because we're going to dry between layers. So I'm going to first throw out, now when you're mixing your color with Distress Oxides, you don't want to mix your warms and your cools. So I want to put a base down first of squeezed lemonade, carved pumpkin, and candied apple. And then these are warms, so I'm going to lay that down first, and then I'm going to go back and top it with my cools. So I'm going to take and just start to move it around with my water bottle, and I'm going to just start to lay this color out like so. So pretty. Now don't have a heart attack here, okay, you guys, because I know that what I'm doing is like, it's painful to see what I just did. I just totally mopped up all that extra ink. I'm going to take my heat gun and I'm going to set this, and then we're going to move on and throw down some warms on top of it, and you're going to see how pretty it is. Okay, so this is fairly set up. I'm going to lay out some lucky clover and peacock feathers. Now, I am not laying out my wilted violet yet, and the reason is because since I'm going to be moving this color around with my water and blending it, if I were to throw the wilted violet on right now, this would be mud. So we don't want that. So I'm just going to take this and just start to pick it up, and as you see, you can still see that orange down through the bottom and, you know, the wonderful warms that we laid. Oops, sorry, don't hate, don't hate. And I'm going to go ahead and just heat set this. All right, I'm going to throw on some wilted violet. Plus, I'm also going to mix in some candied apple with that. As you can tell, you can still see those colors really nicely through this. It's not giving a muddy feel to it at all. There's a little bit perhaps that could go muddy in this area, but it probably was because it wasn't entirely dry before I laid it down, but it's still gorgeous. So I'm going to lay out some wilted violet and then a little bit of my candied apple. And just take and I'm just picking up that color, and there we go. And then I'm going to go ahead and just go over it with the heat gun. So as you can see, some of the colors have remained true and some of the colors have started, and I can't even really say it's muddy. It doesn't really look all that muddy, but I do want to throw down some more peacock feather on this, as well as some more lucky clover down. Oh, I love that. And that's what's so awesome about this, is you can just really, really work it and work it. And if you think it's a lost cause, it might not be a lost cause. You can usually work it to a point where you like it again. Whereas with distressed ink, it might be a lost cause. So from here, what I want to do is I want to just kind of run my edges through the purple. So I'm going to use wilted violet once again, and just really, I'm going to actually really get this moving and just kind of get my edges going in it. And then I will dry this, and then I will show you how to use that distress glaze, which will get rid of that muddy feel, not the muddy, the chalky feel on this. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and just kind of wipe my fingers a little bit off because they're covered in paint. And I want to go ahead and finish this off with some distress glaze, which again will get rid of that chalkiness. It does have a chalky finish to it. You also can use distress glaze on your distress inks, and it will seal it so that it will not move anymore. So what that means is if you want to go ahead and you have a background that you've created with your distress ink and you absolutely love it and you don't want to lose it, then just go ahead and use some of this distress glaze on it, seal it, and then you can stamp on it with like stays on ink or archival ink at that point, and you're not going to lose your background, and you can still work over the top of it. So this really is a game changer for the crafting industry, and his distressed glazes, and I mean his distressed oxides and inks. Okay, so when you open it up, there is a way to use this. His dabbers fit perfectly in it. He did that on purpose. I don't like to use a dabber in this because the sponge tends to sop up a lot of the product. And this is a type of product that you lay down and then you will end up removing some of the excess. I find that I get a better coverage, use less product with my finger than if I were to use my dabber. And as you can see, I don't know if you can tell, but where I'm laying it out, it's already starting to give a really pretty glossy finish to the piece, which is exactly what we are going for. We wanted to, you know, get rid of that chalkiness to it. And so again, you would just apply this the same way on your distress inks. You want to make sure that your distress ink is dry before you do this. Same with this as well. And I'm just really rubbing it into the paper because what I need to do after I get it really nicely covered is I need to just buff it off with a clean paper towel or cloth. I'm going to use a paper towel because pretty much everything around me is covered in ink. So you just go through and you just buff it off, and see, it just allows it to come up, and you are left with a finished, beautiful piece that is not nearly as chalky looking as before. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Again, I could not list all of the things that I'm using in the description box down below because I have a 5,000 character limit and it went way over. So I just picked my favorites. Those are down below, and feel free to check those out. It is affiliated, just so you know, so I get a little bit of a kickback from it, but it doesn't incur extra prices for you. I also tried to find places that gave you the best bang for your buck. But anyway, this is just, I hope you had fun with this. It was fun for me. That's how Color Family works. Basically, keep in mind, you know, you have your warms that are things represented by fire. So that's a red base. And then you have your cools, which is represented by things like water, which we all know water is really clear and it's the reflection of the sky, but just go with me on this, which is a blue base. And if you keep your blues together and your reds together, your warms together and your cools together, you will never get mud. But when you tend to mix them together, that's when you get mud. And the exception to the mud rule that will turn everything into mud is purple. It is made with both a warm and a cool color, blue and red. If you mix that with anything other than blue or red, or blue and red, you will end up with mud. So just keep that in mind for all of your mixable inks, dyes, and paints. I hope you found this beneficial. Please give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, please go ahead and do so. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter under Butts Golden. Until next time, happy crafting.